Get started here. Good morning. I'll call the meeting for the Cook County Board of Commissioners to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we will make adjustments to our new agenda. Any adjustments there?
Madam Chair, just the addition of the ARDC legislative priorities. And
Should we do that at the end?
wherever you would like to
Okay,
put that.
we'll do that at the end. So we'll put that under, because we're voting on those issues, it shouldn't take too long, but we could put it under commissioner concerns.
And then I would also like to pull item 6E. We will save that for November 27th.
Okay.
D, what's that?
6E.
6E.
Yep.
Poland, okay. Okay. Anything else?
E, not F, right?
E.
Yeah. St. Germain's window quote, yeah.
Anything else? Otherwise, a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Support. Oh, go ahead.
All in favor?
Aye.
So everybody's noticed that we have a new agenda format. It'll take a little while for some of the kinks to work out, like we don't have the times on here and some other things, but I will bring that up at the Commissioner Concerns. Won't take time right now to do that. So we'll move on to public comment period.
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Well, I'd like to start by talking about, I think the term used was discretionary funds or discretionary money. There was something in the paper about $15,000 being awarded to the arts program of 2 or 3 different entities. And I thought it was interesting that we would spend that kind of money funding basically entertainment. And there was no money, no recognition of some other safety needs in the community like violence prevention. I'm not sure who else you denied money to, but that non-recognition of them seems like a real slap in the face. To think that you'd fund a paintbrush and not a child is disturbing to me. On another issue, I was, because we're talking about dollars and cents, I guess right now, it's so heavy. I was wondering, how does the county get out of the responsibility of being a bank for businesses? And I'm specifically thinking about the golf course and the swimming pool. They're for-profit entities. If they can't make it, maybe they need to go back to school, take some classes in budgeting, and learn how to live within their own means, instead of continuing to run to the county to bail them out, make them strong. Where does that responsibility lie? If it were a private business and you had to continually throw money at something that didn't seem to be able to take care of itself, you'd figure out a way to get out of it. How do we get out of it? How do we cut our losses? And it doesn't seem like it's slowing down any, it seems like it's growing. The other thing, I got a long list of here of stuff, just individual little things that kind of struck me this morning. We have a 640-acre park or development that you're going to be looking at with the city. And I'm wondering again, why are we putting money into something which basically is for people who have no investment in this community? They're coming here to recreate, and then they'll be gone. Why aren't we paying more attention and giving higher priority to the people who live here and want to try to stay here, and who seem to be finding ways to and want to move? So you will be left with nothing but the elite. You will have no one on the streets. There won't be anybody here to support you, to work for you. It just doesn't feel right. As one lady put it in the paper, she retired to Grand Marais because it was a small, surprisingly cute, quirky, caring little town. Yesterday, I ran into a couple who said, "What happened to this community? It's no longer a place I want to be. If I could figure out how to move, I would do that right now." And they were only one of many who over the course of the summer have said, "We're gone. We're selling. Somebody will buy it and they'll pay whatever they need to pay to get here, but they have no investment in this community. They really don't care what happens. If there's a sidewalk, a bike path, another park, they'll use it and then they'll leave."
I'll give you another minute.
I think I've said my piece. I hope you will rethink many of the things that have been happening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Arvis.
Okay, on the consent agenda, is there anything anyone wants to pull?
C?
I want to
Yeah.
give you an updated for 3H.
Okay. Is that on the Firewise?
Yeah, that's the Firewise. Molly has rewritten the updated version. For Chuck's Wood service.
I'll take one if you have an extra.
Okay. Do you want us to, where'd he go?
Behind you.
Oh.
Here today, gone tomorrow.
Do you want us to discuss it now? Or it's just replacing?
It's just replacing the one. We knew that there were going to be some changes, but we put that one in as a marker, and then Molly fixed it the next day or two.
Okay. All right, anything else? Anybody want to pull anything else?
I said item C.
Oh, C? Okay. Okay.
I would make the motion to approve the consent agenda except for C and H. Support.
Do I hear a second? We have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Okay, so we're pulling C and H. Okay. Morning, Todd and Bob.
Morning.
Morning.
Today, before you, I have a couple of items. First item is an abatement for Timothy White, lives in, or actually has property out on the Brule River in Hoagland. We came to an agreement with him. There was a tax court case that was pending. Molly and I had met with Mr. White back in, I think it was early September, and we settled the case, basically. We made some adjustments to his value. He's satisfied. Cases will be done. This is an abatement of those values that were in place for pay 17 and 18. So. Questions?
Okay, we'll open it up for questions or comments. Commissioner Deschamps?
This was that parcel when I first started.
Yep,
He was in a boat and we got
right,
straightened out
it was the
now.
one that was, the 40 acres that covers the river itself. We've made adjustments over the last couple of years downward, and he agreed with those adjustments, so it was only fair to go back and change the pay 17 and the 18.
Is he happy now?
Yep, he's fine.
He hasn't been happy for a very long time, so,
Well, I think we've solved the issue.
good.
Great.
Okay? No question? Okay. Commissioner Severson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your work to solve the issue, because like Commissioner DeKirk said, that there was some, not just unhappiness, but a serious disagreement, and you helped that
It was
be
a
solved.
pretty long-standing discussion. I think it started back in 2015. And just through speaking with Mr. White and working with, and getting the opinions of everybody else in my office as to values, which is how we do things, we came to a resolution, and it's fine.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have comments or observations? Okay. Well, thanks for bringing us up to date on that, and if everything is good with you and them, the changes are good then.
We'll need a resolution to, or a
Okay.
motion to accept that.
All right.
I move to accept.
Support.
Any further comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So there you go.
Thank you. Second item today is we want to give you an update on where we are in our discussions, our conversations, our issue about short-term rentals and reclassification of those properties in Cook County. I brought Bob here with me today because he's the expert. He's the one that made up all of our information and does the ongoing checking online with all the changes in the actual list. Basically, to start out with, right now, we currently have right around 300 standalone, meaning standalone owned by private individuals, properties that are being used as short-term rentals in the county. And we have another 322 that sit in resorts, that resorts generally handle the booking and those issues. So we've got over 600 that we're dealing with. That includes the city of Grand Marais, but in this process that we're doing now, there's been discussion and Heidi's been in the meetings for our short-term rental committee. They are developing a license process, a license for the short-term rentals in Cook County. That's still unfinished, but we've got the first draft out there for the ordinance. You'll be seeing that shortly. And I think Tim and the Vacation Rental Committee hopes to have that unrolled sometime after the first of the year. That won't stop what we're doing. We're doing those things in conjunction when that license is mailed out to the individuals that own these properties. There'll be a small portion of it, hopefully dedicated to what our office needs as some further clarification as to how we are classifying these. The ones that we've identified, we will be changing those classifications as of January 2nd, 2019 for the taxes payable in 2020. So the notification that they'll get shortly after that, they'll actually get a notification with, we're going to include a letter with the initial license application that's sent out. Tim and I will be sharing the mailing on that. And of course, then there'll be the valuation notices where people will see where the classification has changed. So we hope to have enough information out there, and I've been talking with Val off and on to try and put together a public notification, something to make the public aware of what we're doing here. The Chamber's been very curious as to how we're going to do this, so we're going to try and unveil the largest, public notification that we can using all the different means that we have. So, given that, I guess I'll ask for any questions if you have anything as far as where we're at. We've made our decision as far as the classification change. We've identified the properties. They will be changed from seasonal recreational properties to residential non-homestead properties because they fit that category better than they do their seasonal recreational property or class. There are some consequences to that. Most of them are good. What it does is it redirects the taxes that are collected. On seasonal recreational properties, there's a portion of the tax that they pay that goes to the state general fund under that classification. By changing this classification to residential non-homestead, the taxes on individual units won't change tremendously. In some cases, they're going to go down. But it takes away the money that's sent to the state as far as state general tax, and it redirects it back into Cook County. So all the money stays here for those properties rather than being split between us and the state of Minnesota. It's an advantage to us, somewhere around $300,000 plus. I'm sure that'll be an issue that we'll be discussing in the future. Can be used for many sources, but it is an additional revenue that'll be kept here in Cook County rather than going out of the county. That's probably the best thing that's happening from this, and I guess that's an answer to what people have asked us over the years. What are we doing about the vacation rental issue in Cook County? Well, this is what we can do as an assessor's office. We only have two charges, and that is classification and value. So this is the one that we can handle. I think classification is very important. Valuation is also very important. And I think we're pretty well caught up on our valuations. We've got good information now for the whole county. So it's just a matter of keeping up with it. Bob looks at this weekly, and he actually updated it this morning again. We gained a couple more. It doesn't seem to be, the list doesn't seem to be going down, it's going up. People are adding them all the time. So that's why our office will probably be the office that tracks these on a regular, because we've already got the database set up. He's already got his method of doing it. It doesn't take a lot of his time to do it since he took the time to build this. So now it's just a matter of tracking him each week.
Okay. So on the licensing part, is there a set fee for that? And how do they renew every year? Or how does that work?
Well, they haven't decided completely on that yet. I did get the first draft on it of the actual ordinance. They're still designing the license. The fee schedule has been kicked around as about $100. It's not a very high fee. And I think initially some people were thinking that would be a 2-year fee, but I think now they're down to thinking it's just a 1-year annual fee to renew. It'll be an annual license or an annual license application sent out, and they're trying to tie it in with our RT Vision, so it'll be online as well.
Madam Chair, Tim Nelson will be bringing a proposed ordinance amendment at some point in the future and discussing those items. As Todd mentioned, his responsibilities are valuation and classification. Regulation and/or licensing will come through the ordinance through Land Services.
Okay, then you'll get proper notice out ahead of time for those folks to know that this is happening?
Yeah.
Within 6 weeks? I mean, when you finally set your...
Yeah, when we make our classification change, we're going to do that as of the January 2nd, which that will be, people will see that in their yellow valuation notice when they get. Hopefully, when the licenses are mailed out, the mass mailing of the licenses, there will also be a short letter in there from us explaining why we're making the change because of the indications. And on the license itself, we're hoping to have a couple lines that's asking people, okay, how many days a year are you using this property as a short-term rental? How many days are you using it for personal use? And they should add up to 365 days so that we can then, based on our research, back up and know that we're making the class change correctly. Because in our minds, if they're renting short-term, as vacation rentals for over 30 days a year, then we consider that not a seasonal recreational property. And in some cases, it's 180, 200 days. If they're renting over 250 days a year, they'll go to commercial class. Those issues are within our statutory guidelines. In other classifications, we're kind of using them since there's no hard and fast rules for vacation rentals. We're using what's in place to make those determinations. It's 30 days or more, or 250 days or more, which will change that class. But between 30 days and 250 days, those we're considering residential non-homestead.
Okay, we'll open it up for questions or comments. Commissioner Severson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the current people who are doing short-term rental, are they being taxed at seasonal rec?
Yes,
For the most part.
for the most part, yeah. Most
Okay.
of them are. That's how,
There's a number of homesteads, and some of them actually are falling into the seasonal resort already. One thing I noticed this morning is a lot of the resorts are starting to advertise on VRBO, but they're still a resort, so, yeah.
and we are including those individually owned properties that are in resorts. Even though the resorts are doing the booking, they're doing the actual management of that, we will be
Right.
sending them an application and changing those classes as well, because they're individually owned.
Right.
And in this discussion in looking at the statutes within the state of Minnesota, we really don't have, I mean, they're classified as seasonal recreational cabins as well, even though they sit in a resort, but they're being used just like a standalone cabin, so we're gonna classify them the same.
So seasonal rec and residential non-homestead, is there, I know you said that in some cases the taxes would actually go down.
Yeah,
So is there, I'm imagining that they'll go down for a lot of cases. Is that true or no?
it's, in most cases, I was looking at the list again today, if you get into that lower price range, the under $100,000 and maybe up to $200,000, they go up a little bit. You get into that 250 to 300 range, and they're just about the same. I saw in one case, it
If
was.
they're over $500,000, they're gonna go down.
Yeah, if they're over $500,000, the actual taxes
And
go
that's
down.
just the way the state has the class rates set up.
Okay,
Yep.
It's similar to if they're being used as a long-term rental.
okay. So I just commend you for the work that you have done and finding the solution, and particularly keeping a lot of the money here in Cook County. That's really good work.
And that was something we really didn't even think about initially. I mean, this was just a classification question is what it was, because as I've said before, right from the time I started back in 15, I got calls from people saying, we've got a lot of vacation rentals on our, what's the county doing about that? Well, as myself and as Bob dug into this thing, we realized this is a worldwide issue. I mean, tremendous. The growth has been unbelievable in the last 15 years. And there's been enough research, enough studies done by the state of Minnesota, by other counties, to indicate that something needs to be done. We're the first county to do something on a classification side of it. What happens from here on, we don't know. I know the Department of Revenue is paying attention. We gave a presentation to St. Louis Park in August down in the Twin Cities, because they had a question about this. It was pretty unaware to them, because really they don't have any vacation rentals. I think they had one or two, and it's actually against their ordinance to even have vacation rentals in the city, so they shut them down. Other counties now are asking for the presentation. Bob put together a PowerPoint that we've sent on to those, so there may be more questions here to come. Our region is sitting back and waiting to see what we do as far as the class goes and the class change, because I'm guessing a lot of them will follow suit. And in some cases, the problem is there's no consistency statewide in how these properties are classified. In Cook County, we have a lot of seasonal recreational properties, as we all know. But you look into other counties and you look at the records, and Bob did this, looked at 4 or 5 different counties and found that there's no consistency. Some are already classified as residential non-homestead, some are classified as seasonal rec properties. There's just not enough consistency because there's no real directive from the Department of Revenue on this. So hopefully this will start the process where we have some more consistency statewide.
Start and lead the process in the direction that we really want it to go in, versus having
right.
it mandated and come down.
If the end result is that they create a new class for vacation rentals, so be it. That's fine. We're just trying to be consistent with how we're doing this. We've seen a lot of things in the last couple of years with how properties have historically been classified in this county. it seems like the go-to classification, if it wasn't a homestead, was always seasonal recreation. That's appropriate in most cases, but not in all cases, especially when it comes to vacant land and things like that. We have specific vacant land classifications that, in some cases, a piece of vacant land sitting in the middle of nowhere was classified as a seasonal recreational property, when we have a vacant land classification, so.
Or plats.
Or plats,
Plats that are seasonal rec.
We have a plat law in Minnesota that says when a property is platted, meaning lot block, we have to follow a classification schedule with that. And they were improperly classed. They were classified as seasonal recreation when they should have been classified as residential vacant land. So we found several hundred that will be changing this year,
Wow.
along with this process.
Wow. It's good to look at that.
Yeah, it's cleaning things up, basically, is how I
Awesome.
see it.
Awesome.
Okay. Commissioner Bergeron?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, thanks for all your work on this, especially you, Bob. I know I'm sort of tuning in a little bit on this because I've got some people talking to me about it, as well as I'm sure other commissioners. One of the things that I hear in the public is that, you know, this thing has gotten to the point where it's pretty, it's a high percentage of our property, and that creates other challenges.
10% of our value.
Yeah, and 10% I've heard, and as well as, you know, the housing issue. And I know that we get to 300,000, which I suppose will be some kind of allocation, I don't know. There's been talk about that, but why $100? Why not do more?
That's not their office.
Well, just to.
What are you talking about?
For the
and
fee.
Heidi's right.
Oh, the
The fee.
licensing?
The fee
Oh.
It's
is,
not out of their office, that's
Yeah,
not
th-
services.
that's
We'll discuss
basically
that
how-
later.
right, the Vacation Rental Committee, which was around before we ever looked at this, they're actually the ones that are, I sit in on that just to give it my 2 cents worth, but and I guess we've looked at they looked at other counties to see how the license structure is, how the fee structure is set, and I don't think they want to make it too high or too restrictive, because it's a matter of just identifying and not even necessarily controlling them at this point. It's just making sure that we know that everybody's playing by the same rules. You know, paying the hospitality tax, you know, the lodging tax, and making sure that they meet the state guidelines from the Department of Health. That's the main objective to that. It's really they're disconnected things from what we're doing. We brought the issue up because of our classification, but the way the Vacation Rental Committee is handling this is the big picture, meaning at some point in time, when will the Vacation Rental Committee say, okay, what's our next step, because they keep growing? You know, that's something they'll handle. You know, and with us working in conjunction to give them the information as to what we understand already, what we know are being used that way, it's I think that's the best way to approach this.
So that's going to come before us in
Yes.
another
As Jeff said.
presentation. Okay, thank you. Yeah. But I guess just to follow up on that, it would be interesting, and I think worthwhile, to see what some kind of approaches we can take to, you know, this issue. Is this something we want to promote? Or do we want to stay out of it and be neutral? Or are there things, because it puts pressure on our health and human services, public safety, those issues, there's challenges there.
Well,
And
I
I
think,
hear that, you know.
I think the amount of use in this category puts more of a burden on infrastructure, maybe public safety, things like that, because of the number of people that it generates, brings into the county. Public health, I don't know if it has much of an impact on that, because public safety and infrastructure is probably the
Okay.
big part of
Yeah,
it, biggest part.
I understand that.
But that's something that the Vacation Rental Committee, there's about 20 people on that committee, so, there are members of the rental agencies around, there's some realtors, there's resort owners, things like that, so everybody's in on that and trying to make it the best policy that it can be. So, in the end, I don't know where it's going to go. I know that we've also had some discussions about the city of Grand Marais, where the city, because we're not sending, at this point in time, no license applications will be sent to the city of Grand Marais. That's their choice. That's something that'll have to come from them.
Excuse me, but how many of these vacation rentals are in Grand Marais?
There's 30 parcels, but, you know, a lot of the parcels have multiple units, so it's going to be 30 to 50, 30 to 40 probably.
In
Okay.
the city of Grand Marais.
Yeah,
Right.
I think there was 32 parcels, so if you look at, you know, like Todd Miller's place, he's got 6 on 2 parcels.
Sure.
Well, and you look at East Bay Suites, and there's, 30 in that building alone, and almost all of them are booked on VRBO.
They are. Okay, so then we're talking more than 30 or 40?
Well, it depending upon,
Parcels.
there's not a tremendous amount of freestanding cabins, so to speak, in that buildings, and there's a few in Grand Marais, but East Bay Suites, Todd Miller's place, there's a few along Highway 61 where they have their designated commercial and multi-use zoning. A lot of people have taken advantage of that. I mean, there's not a tremendous amount, but there's, if you counted all of East Bay Suites and everything else, there's probably,
If you counted East Bay, there's more than 50.
there's probably 60.
Okay, okay,
And
thank
we have the
you.
list available if
Yeah,
anybody's interested.
anybody wants to see the list, we have it.
Okay. Thanks.
And you say there'll be no licensing for them, the city will handle that?
City of Grand Marais has already got their zoning in place, and it's up
Okay.
to the city whether they participate in this licensing process or not. That'll be something that I believe the Planning and Zoning Committee from Grand Marais will be looking at, and they'll be talking about it. I've gotten a little bit of discussion on that issue, but that's for the city to decide at this point.
Okay, Commissioner Dukirk?
I don't know that I have any questions because I've been waist high into this for years now. So I don't know that I have questions. Thank you for your work with the state of Minnesota because as always, everything we do is monitored by them. And so we want to make sure that we're working in conjunction with them, but they're also at a loss, so.
It is to a degree. The Department of Revenue, I think, looks at this, and the consistent answer that we've gotten to our questions of the Department of Revenue is the county assessor is the one who makes the decision as to how to classify properties.
And we do have I wrote a report that backs up our decision process, and the 2 strongest points in the report are actually reports to the legislator. Big task force were put together to address vacation rentals back in the early 2000s, and cabins, seasonal resorts and cabins and seasonal resorts, and both of those point to residential non-homestead in their reports in the early 2000s. And somewhere along the line, their narrative has changed to kind of direct more towards commercial. But the one tax court case that went through and it was commercial, we have a place in town here that the Department of Revenue has been using as an educational property to classify as a seasonal resort. So 2 properties use the exact same, and the state's saying to classify them differently.
That's the inconsistency that we've been in. So basically, it came down to, Bob identified all these different inconsistencies in different properties that are actually used the same around the state because of how the classifications are changed and how they're noted in our statutes. It left it up to us. Say, here's all the research behind it, based on this use. This fits the residential non-homestead category much more thoroughly than it does the seasonal rec. Seasonal rec classification, in the words of it itself, it says seasonal residential, recreational, non-commercial, and in parentheses, cabin. That's how that class was created back in 2000. And it says non-commercial, meaning not a money-making operation, not anything involved with making money. And because of that is how we've looked at this. I mean, these are not the family weekend cabin anymore. These are being purchased for the explicit use of vacation rentals. whether it's to help pay for the property or to, in some cases, it's an absolute investment. We see that on our certificates of real estate value that are filed with us every sale that occurs. It says right on them, purchase for vacation rental investment. This is a new wave in real estate market. It's what people are doing because they see there's an opening there. They're buying properties. They're being partially paid for in the operation as a vacation rental, and it's an investment.
Commissioner Deschamps? Oh, did you have one more?
Yep. The permitting discussion will come at a later time, but just for anyone paying attention, Grand Marais is 50 miles wide. So when we talk about not having a permit for Grand Marais, we're talking about the city of Grand Marais, not Grand Marais, because we wouldn't want anyone to think that we're only going to do Hoveland and Lutsen, and Grand Marais will be included.
Everything outside the city limits of the city of Grand Marais will be getting a license
Yes.
application.
Thank you.
Okay.
No comments.
Okay, anything else?
That's pretty much
Thank you
it.
for doing that. Appreciate it. We'll look forward to an update after the first of the year.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll go back to, Brady, before we get to you, we're going to go back to item C under the agenda, posting, YMCA, since Emily is here, and we will discuss that.
Madam Chair, this is, the posting for this, we have had this 8-hour part-time position filled as a temporary position, and we want to fill the 8-hour part-time position as a regular part-time position, and that requires that we post the vacancy and make it available for people to apply for.
So we haven't lost anybody again?
We haven't lost anybody, we haven't changed anything, we just want to make it a regular part-time thing because temporary part-time only lasts for 6 months. So along the exact same lines as what we did with the courtroom bailiff position a few meetings ago, that was authorized on a temporary basis, and we authorized that position on a regular part-time basis. So it's still only the 8 hours, it's just not a temporary position anymore.
And that was just my question, because we've had so many.
It's the same 8 hours, it's just, we're taking the limitation of the 6 months off of it.
Okay. So with that, I will make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Okay. And thank you for this, Emily.
No.
No. It's hard to read, though, it's pretty tiny, but I'll get my magnifying glass out. Okay, anything else on the Y?
Well, we're going to hit that.
Madam Chair, are we going to pick up Brady's item on the Firewise contract on 3H?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, either that or you can go
Yeah, I was
right
going
to
to say,
that further.
Okay.
since Emily's here,
Well, if we wanted to do that, we also have the Historical Society, who's actually listed on the agenda
Yes.
first, and they're here as well.
yeah, we don't have time frames on here, we have to work through this, but, okay, so what do you want to do? Who should we go with?
I'd like to follow the agenda in order.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, this is short.
Okay,
Madam Chair, we're required to publish certain notices in a legal newspaper, and so each year we have to designate one, so the first part of that process is to put out bids, put out a notice. So you see here it attached, this is the notice we've traditionally put out, and it lists at least some of the legal notifications. So the financial statements, commissioner proceedings, delinquent real estate lists, notice of expiration of redemption for delinquent taxes again, publication of the county budget, and all other legal publications. It has to be
It's tight.
requirements for legal newspapers. There's a whole list of requirements, so they have to give us their proof and of their legality. So if you would approve this, the proposed schedule here is to put the notice, we'd put that out to the paper today, to have the bids due by December 13th, and assuming we're having a meeting on the 18th, we could review any bids at that time.
So we could review this, we could add or subtract any of the items here? Is that?
Oh, no, just,
review?
we'll get a bid.
Get a bid.
Presumably, we'll get at least one bid.
Okay.
And then we're just looking at that bid, and we wouldn't change any of the items. These are the ones that I know of that are legal, but anybody, any office that has a legal publication has to use that legal newspaper.
Okay. Any questions or comments about this? No? So I'll hear a motion.
So moved.
Support.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Okay, so moving on then, we'll go to the coroner contract.
Madam Chair, did we want to pick up item 3H? I don't think Brady was here when we pulled the Firewise contract from the consent agenda.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
My computer showed 8:24.
We're going to work on the time frame.
So actually, I would refer this to Molly, who actually made these changes.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to address the Firewise contracts. So it's a little confusing because on the agenda as originally published, you've got new Firewise agreement, previous Firewise contract, and replacement Firewise contract. So basically what I've done is I've combined the replacement Firewise contract and the new Firewise contract. You don't have to do anything with the previous Firewise contract. I think that's just for reference. So in the document I drafted yesterday and that you should have before you, I just basically explained the situation where we have a contractor who's been doing the hazardous fuels reduction work under one business entity called Chuck's Wood Services, and we entered a contract with him in September for a group of properties. Before Chuck's Wood Services finished the work on that group of properties, he started a new business entity. And he wishes to complete the work with that new business entity called Chuck's Wood and Firewise Company, I think it's called. So the new agreement is with Chuck's Wood and Firewise Company. It explains the prior relationship, and it's meant to release the other business entity from finishing that work and obligate the new business entity to finish that work. That's it. It's just made a little complicated because of the change in business entity. We wouldn't want the county to write a check to a brand new business entity that we didn't have a contract with, so that's why I was insisting on the change. Any questions?
Makes sense.
Any questions? No? Okay.
Move to, accept this change.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Another contract coming up, Jeff?
And I'll, thank you, Madam Chair, I'll defer to Molly as well, except to say that this is following up on our notification from Dr. Stover and the clinic that they were issuing a notice on the cancellation of our contract with them for coroner services. In conversation with Sheriff Eliason and Attorney Hicken, we reviewed the requirements, the mandates that we have to have coroner and medical services available in the county, and the easiest way for us to accommodate that was to do what other counties have also done who are contracting with Anoka County for medical examiner services, to include coroner and autopsy services as a part of the medical examiner contract. So what this is just an expansion of the current contract that we have with Anoka County. It has no impact on the budget. It has no impact on, really the only thing that it does is the first responders, the public safety responders, have to contact different people in the case that there is a death. And they are aware of that. They've addressed the workflow. They have confidence that they can work with Anoka County and make sure that we meet our requirements here. The reason it doesn't have any impact on budget is the budget is impacted only by the number of cases that we have to process in a year. The amount of money that we're budgeting for 2019 is not changing as a result of this change in workflow.
Okay, questions, comments? Commissioner DeJong?
Comment.
No comment.
Mr. Severson?
No comment. So I would just make the motion to approve the contract for medical examiner services with Anoka County, and that the proposed contract adds coroner services to the medical examiner services we have already on contract with Anoka County.
Support. Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And then one other note, Attorney Hicken suggested that upon the approval of this contract, that will begin January 1st, that I also send a letter on behalf of the county saying that we're going to go ahead and relieve them of their responsibility starting January 1st, that with this action, we've transferred that duty, and we'll close the circle to the clinic and let them know that as of January 1st, we've contracted to provide those services.
Okay.
And then the next item that we have is an update from the Historical Society, and then a consideration of an improvement to the basement of the building, the museum where the Historical Society is. So I would ask Carrie Barb to come forward. And they're just going to give the update, and when they're finished with that, then we'll address the request for the... Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Which school are we in? How many schools are there?
Commissioner School.
Oh, technology.
Technology, love it.
Yeah.
So it's going to start with flood pictures, but it'll be some fun things too. Well, thanks for having us. We're not excited about the reason we're here is because we're having flooding in our archival storage, but what it's done is kind of highlight maybe a need to figure out how our relationship and responsibility with the county, being we're in a county-owned building, but we're conducting our mission of preserving county artifacts in that building. It's kind of been an informal arrangement since 1966, but these things come up and sort of put a light on that. So I wanted to show you a little bit what happened, because it's rather dramatic, particularly last year. We had a flood on October 27th where 9 inches of water was standing in our archival storage in the basement. And you can imagine it had receded. Thankfully, at that time, we didn't have to see 9 inches of water standing, but it created damage to all of the artifacts on the bottom shelf or the bottom drawers. And so on the left there, you see the files, and then you see compromised boxes. Once they got wet, they kind of crumbled. Thankfully, we didn't have too much that was damaged beyond repair. Those are glass negatives on the left. Maud Small Toffee's glass negative collection, beautiful photograph collection that we have from the early 1900s. There was some damage. Some of the envelopes they were in pulled back the emulsion and damaged some, but we were able to get them out and drying. And worked with conservators to help us figure out how to properly dry those things out. And then the paper files was the big nightmare. We had papers all over the museum, and thankfully we had lots of volunteers helping. So we did one round of drying out paper files, and then we realized that you only get a window of 48 hours before mold starts to form. So we realized there was no way we could do the next round. And so we found out about the freeze-dry method and had that done for the rest of the files. And so this was all thankfully covered by our insurance as far as the loss of property. So we kind of were aware that there was some damage to the foundation at that point, and that this was maybe something that would recur because dirt and worms had kind of gotten into the basement. It seemed like, you know, this is damage. It did turn out that MCIT determined that we have an exclusion for foundation damage. So it flooded again this year. I only laugh so I don't cry. But it flooded again this year. And you can see in this picture, the drywall had already been cut out from last year's flood. So we didn't get drywall damage, in that we had taken all of the artifacts off the bottom shelves, knowing that this might happen again. So this year it wasn't nearly as dramatic as far as damage to our important treasured artifacts that we hang on to. So I'm just going to kind of fly a bit through this. Just one other thing I wanted to point out, the break wall in front of the museum, which is the section that is intact, seems to be leaning a bit more forward to the lake after this last storm on October 10th. That's just my completely unprofessional opinion, but I do think that the break wall being compromised may be a problem. And generally with the flooding, I'm not a hydrologist or an engineer. Just wanted to show you the picture. So just a quick overview. The Historical Society and Cook County were in this arrangement in 1966 as the county is owners of the building and the Historical Society as the tenants, if you will. The federal government donated the Historic Lightkeepers House to Cook County to keep forever as a historic monument. And we have in our files, we have those documents. And the Historical Society decided in 2005, 2006 to add on, with the permission of obviously the county and the State Historic Preservation Office, because it is on the National Register. It's a little tricky to add on, but they did that in 2005, 2006 to add exhibit space and to add archival storage. It was the first time that the Historical Society, as far as I know, had ever made an attempt for archival quality storage, meaning, you know, environmentally controlled storage to take care of artifacts properly. So that was built, and then I started at the organization in 2007, and it was basically, the whole job was just cataloging everything that had been collected over since 1924 and put it away properly. And so for 10 years, we did that work, and now it's completely undone. And so that's what it looked like when it was organized and cataloged and coordinated. And we had, we struggled a little bit making sure our environmental controls were proper. We were getting very close to perfecting that. You need to have a certain relative humidity and temperature for your archives, and different objects need different things. But we're not a big enough organization to be really specific with paper and different objects needs, but we were getting there. Except for this flood has just turned it all on its head. So this is where our objects are now. We're in the process of pulling, this is a picture from this morning, of all the boxes in our exhibit space. We've had to adopt our exhibit space for storage now because we can't, in good conscience, keep historic artifacts in a basement known to the flood. And so we're in this upheaval. These are two examples of exhibit space that are currently holding our artifacts. They're not environmentally controlled. This is not proper storage. That's better than a flooding basement. So we feel like we're doing the right thing by pulling everything out of there. The Johnson Heritage Post thankfully has some storage space, so we've taken all of our paper items, or a lot of our paper items. A lot of our paper we access frequently. People come in and research things, and so we can't shove everything away where we can't find it. We need to still be able to access primarily our files and our photographs. But our textiles, oversized maps that are already digital newspapers, things that aren't accessed frequently, we can have off-site. And so we've moved things over to the Johnson Heritage Post. This has all kind of happened in the midst of us making a lot of really positive changes. So I just want to quickly highlight the fact that we are doing really positive things at the Historical Society this year. Or just at the end of last year, we consolidated our management, and so now I'm the executive director of the Johnson Heritage Post as well as all the other sites. We've got some great staff, and we've reorganized. So this is happening, but really a lot of positive things are happening as well. It's just an unfortunate setback. For example, we received the contents from the Scott Fish House, a really interesting historic collection. When Northhouse purchased Dockside and the Tofty's property, the Tofty's offered us access to take the collections from inside the historic fish house, which is on the National Register as well. These are all items found, 1902 documents. Those photographs were found in the fish house. They've been there since, who knows when, 1910 or something. Really interesting stuff. What it means is we just have more stuff also to figure out where to put. Right now, these things, which are really important historic artifacts, are sitting in a storage container right next to the Johnson Heritage Post, which is better probably than the conditions they were in for 100 years in the Scott Fish House. So we're moving up. Of course, as partners in the ownership of Bolly's, we also have a lot of interesting artifacts that we inherited at Bolly's, including a metal lake there right in front, and thousands of artifacts that came with it. Really important pieces of Cook County's history. Those we have felt that are a little less vulnerable, being metal tools primarily, things like that. So we haven't been in an emergency situation to get those in the proper archival storage, but they should be. As a museum, as an organization like we are, we should be housing these things in proper conditions. But we're busy inviting visitors and doing that as well to drum up interest and support. We obtained a collection from David Hammer and his family. There's another off-site storage out in Hoagland right next to his fish house with all these artifacts and wonderful boats that he's helping us to plan for a future museum. He's helping us through fundraising and through planning efforts. He would like to see a future maritime museum with his family's collection, and then of course all the wonderful things we have in our collection, including the lighthouse lens and so forth. And then at Chippewa City, we're moving things forward. We don't have a lot of collections associated with Chippewa City. Unfortunately, it's also not a good place for storage. And we're looking at every nook and cranny. But the building is our focus there, and we had an archaeology dig last year to ensure that we wouldn't disturb anything when we're looking at foundation repairs at the site. So I'm just highlighting these things as important things that we're working on, besides, of course, storing. And here's a few examples of some of the important papers, maps, documents. This bottom document is from the Colville Township minutes, which are in our collections. There's fun things, but there's also important things. I know that those minutes had been accessed at one point for county needs related to road maintenance and so forth. So we do hang on to things that are not just fun, but also important and significant. And just a little smattering of some of our historic photos, which I think is our most interesting collection. So I just wanted to point out our services to the community, that we have these 3 buildings on the National Register. Those are important things that we preserve and care for. We have these tens of thousands of artifacts that are kind of in question today. What do we do with all these artifacts with our storage compromised, and just some of the things we do as far as managing museums and providing research access and so forth. So to me, we have a couple of primary questions. And I know that we presented a bid to you for some trenching and some pumps in the basement. I'm concerned that the work that's proposed there. I think it's probably one of the best case scenarios. I'm concerned that it doesn't preserve our storage. It allows for water to continue to enter and just pump it out. So maybe it's a good solution for the building, but it's not necessarily the solution that we need for our archives. So I'm a bit at a loss. I've talked with our consultant, shall we call Dwayne Agee, who's helped us with our buildings for years. He's no longer on the board, but he works with us pretty closely, and he says, well, maybe there's another way. Can we figure out if further flooding can be prevented rather than just kind of using what I'm calling this Band-Aid solution that doesn't help our situation. He thinks there's science that maybe can get at where's the water table, what are some of the steps. The MCIT engineer did suggest certain steps like removing flower beds and putting gutters on, and I don't think he claimed it was a solution, but he suggested some steps. So I don't know. Can we consider other methods? I don't, you know, maybe nothing will work. It is a big lake and we are maybe below the water table. And then for the Historical Society, I think it would be wonderful if we could clarify. We've been in this building for 40, 50 years now, 50 plus years, and we just don't have any real clear formal arrangement with the county. So when things like this happen, you know, where our responsibilities are. It's a little bit fuzzy.
So we'll open it up for questions or comments. First of all, do you have a board member with you?
Yeah.
And you are?
Oh, my name is Barb Backlund.
Barb, okay.
And I'm the president of the Historical Society.
Okay.
Current president.
Current president, okay.
No, it's
So I would like to comment just about the break wall. Who, is that the city? Who takes care of a break wall?
I'll tell you this, I asked the city, because that was the first place I went, and they said, no, that's you, it's on your property. And I asked Myron and Jeff, and Jeff, your opinion was it's Army Corps of Engineer.
The best information that I have is that all of that is Army Corps of Engineer.
Okay, well, maybe that's a place to pursue, because that's, you know, and the lake is rising, and the storms are getting higher, so it's going to be inevitable that the break wall right now is not holding it back. So, Army, okay. And then what about, are you digitizing a lot of the paper pictures, things that you receive? Are you putting all, or trying to do most of that?
Sure, it's
Yeah.
a huge project.
Oh, yeah,
We do it
right.
as we go.
Right.
We don't have any dedicated person who day in, day out digitizes.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do it as we go.
Mhm. Okay, so let's have some comments, questions. Commissioner DeShaw?
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
I brought you up at the last meeting, actually.
What's that?
Said I brought the Historical Society up at the last meeting. I seen you had a GoFundMe page
Oh.
to help with the basement there and with the county-run building. I think the county should be responsible for it. And
The bottom section there is the toddler room is on the other side, and then the preschool room, they're kind of next to each other. And so what it would look like if we were to put a bathroom, a shared bathroom in between, because for center licensing, you're allowed to share a bathroom. So we would look at putting a toddler-sized or preschool-sized toilet in there so that they don't have to step up on step stools to get to a toilet, child-sized sinks right at their level that they can wash their own hands without stepping up on something, a diaper changing station which needs to be within 3 feet of a sink, so that would allow us to have diaper changing right in the room and not have to take a group of kids over to the bathroom across the hall every time we need to do a diaper change. And then a drinking fountain, so because right now there's no water in the room, so we have, you know, one of the big igloo coolers, and licensing requirements, you have to use either single-serve cups, so it's Dixie cups and a jug that we're filling and washing every day, and so having a drinking fountain would eliminate a lot of that waste and a lot of that time to clean the jugs and fill the jugs and things like that. So just a lot better best practice. So that is kind of the proposed bathroom there. And then we can talk a little bit about what that will look like in terms of funding. But why it's necessary, and I have been kind of sharing that, but we're better able to meet the health and safety standards for licensing, so kids can wash their own hands, and before every snack, after diaper changes, they're washing their hands about 10 times a day, I feel like, in a childcare setting, but letting them do that independently and gaining autonomy. With the bathroom in the room, with new construction of a bathroom, we'd be looking at having a more ADA compliant bathroom in case we do serve children with special needs, to be able to have it more appropriate, things at their level, those types of things, so they don't have to climb up steps and stools and whatnot. It is early childhood best practice to have, for potty training, to have toilets in the room where kids can go when they need to go, and model these things for each other, and do things independently. Operational effectiveness, right now, and also supervision and safety, because right now the location of where they are, we've made it work, but it's a little clumsy where to keep within ratio, if you can go to a group bathroom break, but if you're in the middle of nap, or there's, in the middle of playtime and one child needs to go to the bathroom, you have to take half the group with you in order to stay within ratio, or you have to call the manager on duty or the child care director to come out from the office and assist with the bathroom break. So it's not the most operational, it's not as operationally effective as it could be. We don't want to be in a one-on-one situation with youth either. And we don't want to be in a situation where you have to take 10 of them with you when you go to the bathroom. So we do have the potential to increase capacity, having 15 toilets per kid. I'm just kidding.
It's a whole different kind of capacity.
Not that we're going to do that right now, and then the demand I don't think is there right now, but if community needs shift in the future, then we have that potential and capability. And then just reduce the risk associated with sharing a bathroom with middle school students. The school itself, our insurance company, our licensor would all appreciate having their own special space to use the restroom. So those are some of the reasons why it's necessary. Some of the estimated costs of the project, we have gotten some quotes for the bathroom, and we're looking at getting some more, or actively seeking some more bids from local contractors. But the entire estimated project cost, if you include the playground, would be about $120,000. Again, the focus or our priority would be the bathroom, which is about $100,000 of that. So far, we've secured $30,000 already for the project that we're holding, in the hopes that something can be done. And that would be from the Lloyd K. Johnson Foundation and Northland Foundation. And we've also applied for some funding that we're waiting to hear back on, and should hear in December if we were awarded those grants. And so one of them is a $25,000 ask to the Laura Jane Musser Foundation. And then $60,000 we're anticipating will hopefully come from IRRR. So we worked with EDA, who's supporting a grant application for IRRR. I believe it was actually submitted at $95,000 because there's a possibility that they may waive. They do require a 1-to-1 match, but there's a possibility that they may waive that for the project. But we're kind of anticipating the support to come in closer to $60,000. And then we're just going to keep continuing to apply for other local and regional grant sources as well, because the goal would be that we wouldn't have to ask you for anything, and that we can find the funding to support the project. But if some of those pending funds don't come through, then we're looking at a potential match of up to $30,000. It wouldn't be more than that, because we've already secured some. And so right now, I think at this point, just letting the county know that we are hoping to make a modification to the facility, and that we're hoping to pay for it through grant sources, but that there may be a potential match involved depending on how the rest of the funding comes in. So role of the board, just acknowledge that we're asking for facility modification and a potential financial contribution to help us move that project forward. Any questions?
Okay, great. Good to have an update on your bright spots and on your challenges. We'll have time here a little bit for questions or comments. Commissioner Deschamps?
With your daycare center, do you generate enough money for it to?
No. You need about, I think you need over 100 kids in a center to actually profit usually. And so it's a decision that we made knowing that it would operate at a loss, but that it's an important community service. And so, people always ask, you've got 1,700 members, what do you do with all that revenue? Some of it does go to offset and support and subsidize programming, mission-driven programming that doesn't generate revenue.
And then on your source of income, I didn't see the city's name on there.
What, you didn't see?
Yeah.
That would be accurate.
Commissioner Dukert?
It's interesting this morning that our public comment was that we support brushes and not children. And I think that this is a request to support
It's funny.
children. You probably give them brushes too to paint with. That was a nice slide to show us how many community members are able to maintain employment because of the services provided. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That is important. Obviously, it's a great facility because you're willing to put your own children in there. And some of you laugh, but we did have a situation different, which we won't get into. But so this says information only. Is that correct? We're not taking any action?
Yeah, Madam Chair and Commissioners, the contract that we have with the YMCA says that any substantive change to the building needs to be approved by the board at some point, and we're still waiting for final project specs and to go ahead and get quotes to do the work, and final approval on some of the grant applications that we have. And I suggested to Emily that it's kind of premature to come in and ask the board to authorize spending money or approving a project until we actually have all the dollar signs laid out. But as this goes forward, I would expect that in the next several meetings, we would have those things, quotes and confirmation on grant dollars, and knowing what the public support of this may or may not be. So this is really just a heads up that they're proposing a change to the building, and that there may be some grant matching associated with it. And then when we come back, when we have those numbers nailed down, then we'll come back again and present that.
And does this come out of the money we allocated for capital improvements, or is this separate?
We haven't identified, but it might be part of what's already in the 2019 budget that shows capital improvements, which we had not had in there before. So if you'll recall, the YMCA budget for 2019 shows $18,000 for durable equipment and $25,000 for capital improvements. And to this point, those two numbers are still in there, so.
Okay.
Commissioner Bergeron?
Well, I've been a member of this advisory council for some time, and I know that the YMCA was going through strategic planning, I think, in 2015, and we had identified as childcare as the greatest community need. And I know that in just being involved in other board meetings and committees throughout northeastern Minnesota, we're doing quite well because of this. But also I think it's being understood that we're not doing this to put home providers out of business. I think this has been based on need, and I think the challenge that we've seen is that this, the number of births every year, and you did a great job on your interview on WTIP. She explained this quite well, that we have these changes in births in the county. They're going to have a surge one year, which we did, and then less. But to build capacity is important here. And I think having this facility is a very cost-effective way for the community, the county, to provide a service that's very much needed. And that's been difficult elsewhere because they're building facilities, which are very expensive. And so I think it's not ideal, but then it's got a lot of benefits. And I don't know, I'm up there quite frequently, and I think it's just great to see parents coming in at night picking up their kids, and we've got some other parents there that are, watching their kids in athletics, and it's really become a community-oriented facility, and this is just a big part of it. So thanks for all your work on this, Emily.
You're welcome.
Trustee Everson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I want to just echo Commissioner Bersheim. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Maggie, for chairing this very important committee in the community. And I think 2013 it opened, 2014. So January 1st, 2014 it opened, and it's December 2013. Yeah. Anyway, in a very short period of time, with your leadership, Emily, and really good chairs of the committee, we have seen tremendous service growth to the community, and continuing to improve and answer those needs effectively and efficiently is amazing. So this, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you have time to manage the day-to-day tasks, and then also to do planning and dreaming and et cetera. So it's it's awesome. I just can't say enough. It's so amazing what all the services that we're getting that we didn't have before. So thank you very much, and this seems very reasonable, and I agree, building capacity, but actually, and answering just the capacity that we already have is needed. And again, it's not because you're competing with other daycare facilities. In fact, our daycare facilities have dramatically shrunk again this year, so we need the WISE Center even more than we did a few years ago. So thank you, really great work, and I hope that we can continue to support you and synergize the efforts that you're creating to make this work even better.
Thank you. Thanks again for the update, and we'll look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you. Can I just say one thing in closing? I would never come and propose something like this if I didn't feel very strongly and comfortable that we're in it for the long haul and that we're committed to continuing to provide this service. So it's a very important one to the Y, and we know it is for the community. And we've overcome a lot of challenges and obstacles, and we'll just, like you said, keep dreaming and keep moving forward and keep making sure that we're providing a quality service for those that need it. So thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you. Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break and come back and take up item D.
Yes. Good.
Okay.
So how big was your moose?
49-inch rack.
I hope so.
60.
I got a 59 in my room.
It's Canadian. That's good though. I mean, Eleanor told me it was down Blueberry Road where you're hunting, or Firebox, or
Up my agreement area.
have you been scouting it?
Yeah, I've seen them the day before.
In the rut, running around? Yeah. Usually they get into trouble then. Good for you. How the hell did you get it out? Did you get your vehicle close to it?
Yeah, I got a sideways. Everything, get right to them. So
Got a trailer?
drug them out and got them down and then drive around the trailer.
Good for you. Yeah, it's my favorite moose. We were just talking yesterday on extension, and thinking about having something in Portage, talking about a commercial kitchen, and
Yeah, that's not long ago.
more people could, actually clean up game and can.
Oh, that's for something else.
Having a commercial commitment in that old school building.
Was that for what?
That's what she was talking about.
What was that?
Test. And then people could lease it out for, commercial production fees as well. You did a great job up there for each of a lot of community issues. Gardens. Progressive.
Now I can have coffee.
She's got 3 meetings left.
What's that? Oh, yeah, do I? Is it 3? Yeah. Well, we'll probably have human service. Yeah, no, that's, yeah, that is, that counts that.
Right, so it's December.
Unless we, reach a decision in budget. I can't answer that. But you never know.
No, yeah,
You never know.
find out.
Yeah.
Well, that's, dating, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have what's time.
I've done that,
Drinking, we're gonna need like 15 for every child, we're gonna have a lot of fun. Carlson's gonna be keeping one that. I like it, then we can invent all kinds of stories about that drink from it, mine will be granted. Yeah. Great healthy life in front of her. I can't figure out what this is and then I realized, oh, we're missing. It doesn't make any sense. Suppose everybody's. So try to get it. Yeah. No, I guess I was my face. I assume that that's the size I live there. I have to look at it online. I'm actually pretty sick. Then I get. Well, that's what I hear. So I don't know. Somebody else? Longer than this. It's like this down here is the peppermint and everything that comes out of my mouth and my congestion. So I just have a mouth. I don't know what it's saying. Everything well.
3 weeks, that'll be cured.
Yeah. Create another mouth. Yeah.
Providing compliance with
Must have a mouse in the corner. Somebody took a half of one. No, I shouldn't say mouse. I hate that. I hate that. Ooh, when they have these ridiculous little creatures, dressed up, little mice dressed up like. Oh, don't do that. God, they must not ever kill the mouse.
That, mice and chipmunks, not good for me.
I know. I don't mind chipmunks. They're cute.
No, not when they're in your house.
Oh, yeah, well, okay.
You're chasing them with the broom and.
I know, I had one in the house last year, and I'm trying to figure out, how did that happen? Well, I went through the back door and it didn't shut fast enough. And the little thing was right down there, just ready to get in the house.
Do you have a friend?
I have one or two. Will you be my friend? Well, I'm working on it, yes, to come on Thursday. Yeah. I'll see what she says. Yeah, I know, it's a busy week for everybody.
Yeah. I can't get back in time.
Pick a week to
Yeah.
visit.
I know. Last week. Wasn't that busy with
Yeah, I was
with meetings.
volunteered to,
And enough.
I'm gonna be in Duluth on Thursday.
Right, that's,
Yeah. Yep.
You got someone else to do it?
Well, I'm working on it.
Yeah.
And would it be 10 o'clock?
So had dinner with your Pat the other night.
Yeah, I gotta get up and see her.
Oh, we laughed so hard. She's such a good storyteller.
Oh, yeah, she's full of them.
It's going to be at least an hour. It's going to be longer than that.
Yeah, I'll try to get in this week sometime.
It's probably more like 10:30.
Well,
Yeah, so Toby, you're gonna have to be in Duluth.
well, I'm just gonna be down on Wednesday night for a function with the ride, and then I'm just gonna do some shopping,
Well, let me get back to you, because I have a couple people that are thinking about it too.
But if you pick it, if you pick it for 11, that'd be safe.
Okay. That.
So let's leave it at that. If it's 11, just let me know, or we can decide now, and I'll just get back.
Up to you, because you want to shop and do stuff too.
Well, no, it's up to you.
Now we got to get
No,
into
I don't wanna-
the
No, I don't want to put you.
details.
Who knows what the weather will be?
The details, but the details are driven by services. Business.
If they want to challenge the result, you put it in the wrong pile.
City of Burnham.
That's really it. And then the machine count would be hard to know what trigger that.
Well, Jenny, I mean, I'll do it. But if you want to get someone else, you can.
Okay, well, I'll let you know tonight, hopefully.
Let me know
Okay.
by tonight.
Yep.
Send me an email.
Okay. So, yeah,
And then let, to Brady as well as me.
yep.
And then I'll be here at 11 if, it's
Okay.
here, right? I'll be here if you can't get someone.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I'm fine either way.
Okay, so we're all back, and we will take up item D, CIP bonding update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had hoped to get an actual update to you today with the actual numbers, but with the election and finalization and needing to get some confirmed numbers from the engineer's office, I'm just going to provide a brief summary, and I will get the actual numbers to you as soon as we have them. But the CIP update is related to the capital improvement bonds that we issued earlier this year. We had roughly $7 million available for transportation-related projects, just over $2 million for capital projects, and $499,000 for equipment projects. And what I want to do is give you an update of what we've actually spent, what's been bid, what the bids were, what the actual costs were, and then what we have left and what projects we have left to complete from that list. So I'm not going to do the highway because I will wait till I get the update from Kristen and Lisa. But for the capital projects, we had projects related to the courthouse and the law enforcement center windows and the courthouse roof. We have received bids on those, and we have bids that are within our expected cost parameters, although we're still negotiating the specific details. John McNamara with WOLD did that bidding for us, and they will be here on the 27th to present information related to the jail study. So we'll actually present those bids for the windows and the roof on that day, so that you'll actually have those to look at, and we'll narrow down what of the options and elected. There's the double painting, the painting, and the glazing, and some of the different bid components that we can still adjust. The community center park improvements, we had allocated $725,000. We have the The park improvements at $200,000. We have the skating rink at $264,000. The boards were delivered yesterday, so that the concrete work for the skating rink is done, that the boards are here, and they should be being installed this week, and then that project will be complete. The warming house project, we rejected all bids on, and the community center board is working on options to get a warming house built within the parameters there. The Public Works facility in Hovland, we rejected all bids. I've got information for you today about a second option that we considered. And the good news is between the bond amounts that were available, the additional resources that we brought to bear in the community center projects, we had the settlement related to the original ice rink. We had the $60,000 from the 1% funds that were held over for the warming house. We had the $30-some thousand that was donated by the Hockey Association to go towards those two projects. We're still able to get all of these projects done. So any questions about where we're at within that process? There, we asked, we can reallocate the monies within the CIP bond, but we really, the capital plan that we put forward is the plan that was supported by the board, so moving forward with the entire plan is important. Item E, the courthouse LEC windows, as I mentioned, we'll hold off until November 27th so we can identify which of the exact options we want to recommend that we move forward with, specifically related to the windows. Other questions, Brady? Was there anything else related to the bond update? I want to get the actual numbers out, but with the election and the holiday yesterday, we just didn't get numbers.
No, I think that's pretty much it.
But everything still does fit. Item F, Hovland Public Works Facility. The first item that you have is, well, two items that you have are the opinion of probable cost. Which was from the Meyer Group, who did the architectural work for us on that. And you can see that we had $150,000 allocated for site development, $975,000 to $1,094,000 allocated towards. This was in the handout that I just provided this morning.
Oh, got it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to say, it's in here. Don't wait for me to find it. I'll listen.
So on the opinion of probable cost from the Meyer Group, you can see that we had the Hovland site development at $150,000. That included the demolition of the existing building, site work, materials testing, and utilities work. And then you can see the new Public Works building had some other allocations, but the primary one was the building, a 6,000 square foot building, somewhere between $780,000 and $900,000. And then design and construction contingencies and the architectural and engineering fees. We've already encumbered the architectural and engineering costs related to this project and a good component of the site, the materials testing. And so with the 780 and the 900,000 plus the 50,000 design contingency, 950 was the amount that we programmed into the capital improvement plan for the building, the construction of that facility. And then because we had rejected all bids, we were looking into alternatives to get this project built according to those specifications. Sourcewell is the new name for the NJPA, National Joint Powers Alliance, which is a group out of Staples who puts together bid specs and bid process that meet the state bid requirements. for construction of facilities, which means that anytime we're spending more than $175,000, we have to go through a formal public bid process. This Sourcewell project is an alternative to that as it relates to the construction of buildings. In much the same way that we don't need to go out and get quotes every time we buy a vehicle, we can buy something off a state contract. That means they've already met the competitive bidding requirements, and we can buy through somebody who meets the state pricing on those things. In much the same way, Sourcewell provides a similar service related to the construction of buildings. The proposal by Kraus Anderson was for $1,028,000 for the building, $156,000 for the earthwork and site, and winter conditions of $26,000. So by comparison, we had $950,000 for the project in the bond. They're showing $1,050,000 in building costs, which is about $100,000 over our budget. We have money in the bond to accommodate that and get that done. However, reviewing this with Kristen Foster last night, she still thinks we should go forward with our current plan, which is, if this didn't work out, to rebid in February, have another public open bid in February, and see if we get a better price. Her primary concern is that doing site work and concrete work, Kraus Anderson wants to start the job tomorrow. And we have significant concerns about the type of work that you get done when you're doing site work and concrete work during these weather conditions. She had said if this came in right at her budget and it was there, we would have to weigh those things and we would have to consider that. But it is Kristen's opinion that we'd be better off going forward with a formal bid process again in February. I will tell you that to engage the Meyer Group to do in their bid process means we will encumber a little more architectural and engineering fees. I don't think it'll be significant. And hopefully we get local bidders or more competitive bids as we're moving forward earlier in the season. This past year we were doing the bids in June, if you recall. Questions about the bid projects, the bond, the capital list, and/or the Hovland project?
I don't really have a question. I just appreciate Kristen's opinion, and it makes sense to me that, I don't think there's anything we gain by pushing forward. We're only risking that the bid would be a lot higher in February, but I think there's more of a chance that it would be lower, and pushing it forward, you would be risking the quality of the project, so.
Just as a reminder, the bids we received in June were $1.29 million and $1.41 million. So 1.05
It's quite a bit less.
Is less.
Because they're available now.
Because they're available now.
Yeah. Okay, I guess it's not that clear.
Thanks for your work on this, Mr. Cadwell, and I know that it's not an easy thing to do, and having done this before. And my previous comments no way reflected negatively on you, because I know you're really doing a great job with our planning. My comments were more directed at the history of the board and not planning ahead. And so I appreciate your efforts with this. And I think my comments also is that I think we as county commissioners need to advocate for facilities as well. And so that was the context of my comments. But thanks for what you're doing with this. It's good work and appreciate it.
Mr. Dukert?
So can we take some time in January and just get refreshed and reminded about the complexity of this facility? And yes, there is the chance that we'll get bids at 1.5 million again, but could we have construction be in the summer and eliminate winter conditions and save some money? Since we can't even put the septic in until winter conditions are over at this point. I mean, that'll be a little bit of savings. Yeah, I talked to Jeff yesterday and had some concerns, and winter conditions are not good for foundations and constructions. I know it can be done, but we just went through a whole legal process with our skating rink construction. So even in the best of conditions, things can go the wrong way. So thank you for, Kristen, if you're watching, if you're looking at us, thank you for putting in the time and effort in this and taking some serious considerations and being willing to put this on hold, because I know that your crew needs this building really bad.
Commissioner Shaw?
This one from the Myers Group, Jeff, is this also for the Hoagland facility?
There are 2 pages. There's a front and a back, and the front is the Hoagland site development, the new public works building, and then future considerations. So I think the short list you're looking at there is the second page of that.
The future part.
Yep.
Yeah, and you look at some of the stuff on that, the petroleum storage and whatnot there, so you're gonna add another $75,000 right away to that, because the proposed building is going where the fuel storage is now, so, you know, this isn't an actual, wouldn't be an actual number anyway, you got some more stuff to add on there, so. But I think, try to rebid it again and see if we can get into where we need to be on it.
So what I would, if everybody's agreeing with that, what I would like the board to do is vote to reject this bid from Kraus Anderson and direct us to move forward with the February rebid, and we'll bring those specifications to the board before that goes out public.
I'll make that motion.
I will second that motion.
Any further discussion? Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Okay, so we will look at this in February. Thank you, Kristen, right. And everybody involved thinking this through. It's a lot to think through.
Yeah, it's a shock.
Yeah.
The next item, Madam Chair, is an update on the financial management plan. That's really small print.
Pretty damn good
Even for you.
Even with the glasses, that's not going to work, so I have to go to the original.
This is why I like colored paper, because I don't know which one I'm looking at. Which one are you looking at, Jeff?
I am going to be looking...
The one with the tiny print?
The financial management plan from Ellers.
From Ellers, okay.
This one.
Which is
Yeah.
page 107.
Oh, it's off the chart here. Is this one?
Yes.
Okay, this one.
Yep.
Okay.
It does have color.
It does.
Okay, well, there's a problem, because it
Yeah.
didn't print the whole thing.
Yeah, mine didn't print the whole thing, but.
I didn't get it.
But did it
either.
go?
We're going too far to the right. Are we missing
Oh,
anything?
Yeah, it
You-
chopped up.
You are, what's the top heading?
Yeah.
What's the top year that you have?
2019.
2019, okay. Generally, I just wanted to provide you with an update of, the financial management plan has been updated to show 2018 numbers, 2019 proposed numbers, and the actual bond amounts for the 2018A issuance. And when we were working with Chris, when Brady and I were working with Chris on this, on page 2, the general fund and tax levy, if you have it in color, the green line projects, what you're missing is this projects out to 2026.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
I figured it was.
And what
I
it
think
shows
Some of them show more, but.
is it shows the future capital considerations that are along the back wall, the jail, proposed jail project, the need for additional space at the courthouse, the need to refresh the facilities at the main highway location. And it shows those projects and the financial planning needed for that, and it also shows a balanced approach to the tax levy increases of a number of approximately 6% or less. So it's showing the ability to plan going forward, increasing a little bit in the current operational budget available for building maintenance, and developing the capacity for these additional projects, and still maintaining a levy increase tied more to CPI and the cost of living, and not having large
Those
fluctuations
jumps.
and variations. So just as much as we can look into the history and say on average, the levy has gone up on average 4.5%, but it didn't because we went 0, -12, 25, we were
Yeah.
all over the board. It shows going forward, we can plan for the things that we know we're going to have related to capital expenses and increasing operational building expenses, and making adjustments and allocations to attend to fund balance, making deposits into fund balance as needed to maintain the ratios that we're showing are important, without having significant impact on the levy.
Wow.
From the other standpoint is, if we don't plan for this and then we have a major improvement, then we're in the situation where another one of our counties is this year, where they're saying we only have a 3% levy increase, but they're adding 6% because they don't have the capacity for the debt service related to their courthouse improvements. So the truth of the matter is they're looking at a 9% increase.
Right.
Not 6 of it is targeted towards debt service payments that they don't have. So that's the update on this. I apologize for the fact that it didn't.
That didn't print.
that
But
it
this is
didn't-
using that tool.
This is using that tool. It's
and-
taking our current numbers
Yep.
and projecting
It's
into the
awesome.
future, and then modifying some of the considerations like contributions to fund balance, possible future projects. This one, the old one that we had the major lines in it for projects. I think we even showed $15 or $16 million for a jail and a law enforcement and a
Wow.
and a court facility, and now it's been adjusted to show the actual realistic numbers that we've kind of said, we're not going to do a full building, we're going to
Yep.
improve in place what
Oh.
we have. So the actual numbers from the WOLD study have been plugged into this. They are available in their entirety.
Online.
Online.
Yeah, I'll
in the
look.
budget.
Yeah.
In the budget page on this. We're going to talk about it later, but one of the things related to the new format of the agenda is as much time as Julie spent in not having to collate and photocopy. We still have to develop the familiarity to make sure that we have the print settings appropriate, so that it's resizing pages automatically and
Right.
printing them like this, so you get all the information instead of printing them like
Yeah.
that.
And probably, I just
Because-
need to go, I just need to go
because-
there.
Because this, I
Yeah.
printed
Yeah.
my copy straight.
But you adjusted.
No, I just accepted the default settings and it print them automatically. So somehow or another,
Okay.
the print settings from one computer to the next are different. But all the material is out there.
Great.
Anything else related to the financial management plan update, Brady?
That's the basic.
So the primary assumptions are managing capital, operational, levy capacity. I still think we're only showing a 1% increase on tax capacity on average over time. We're trying to estimate everything as conservatively as we can, including tax capacity. So all of the assumptions on there are relatively safe as far as that goes. We could assume tax capacity was going up higher, which would have an impact on the net levy increase versus the gross levy increase. We could make other assumptions, but following Eller's advice, everything is relatively conservative.
Okay. Thank you on that.
And it's fantastic, even though I can't see the whole thing, that it works. You know, plugging in the real data as we get it, that it works, and feels really good. We're taking care of business on all levels.
A lot of works for the works.
Yeah,
We do have a plan.
yeah.
And more of the components are included in that plan. I think, as we just addressed this morning, we have still needs that are not completely in that plan, but they are somewhat in there. We've increased the amount of money in the annual operating budget to address building needs. One of the conversations that I would have is as we look at the long-range projects, which ones are not on there? And I think we've identified one of them this morning, being our relationship and commitment to the Historical Society. And you could expand that to say other buildings that the county owns, which would include the town halls. We know that we've had to say no because we don't have money. We also know that we've had to say no because we can't find somebody willing to do the work. But we also know that right now we haven't allocated the resources to those things that we need to if we're going to continue to maintain and take care of them. The town hall budget for next year is $4,000. And that, basically, that addresses utilities. That doesn't have anything to do with maintaining the facility. That's all done within Brian's regular budget.
Okay, so we also have the mailer
So,
that you're going to send out?
a budget update, there was a question to get an update on where we're at in the budget process and the work that the Budget Committee has done to this point. And three pieces that I included for reference is the budget mailer, which will go out with the tax statements. That'll be in people's hands before the Truth and Taxation meeting.
Have these gone out already?
Have they been mailed, or have they just
No.
been sent to the printer?
They're just sent.
They're sent to the printer already?
Which of the errors did you find?
Blue-green color blindness, this looks
Oh,
like a blob.
That's true, the color.
I brought it up last year.
Yeah, you're right.
It looks
Well,
like-
even if you aren't colorblind.
I mean,
Yeah.
I see all the percents and all the notes and
Yeah.
everything, but I just know that people that are colorblind are gonna just see blobs. That's all right.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of them.
But it's still, it's an attempt to make it understandable.
We can address
It's
it,
hard to
and we can put it in, one of the problems is trying to make it fit with the colors of the
Cook County
county
colors.
logo.
I know, that's what we did
Yeah.
last year,
And
and
the
I
blues
get
and the
that.
greens,
Yeah.
and that makes sense. Maybe we can, if nothing else, make it available in an alternative format on the webpage so that somebody who has a problem
Yeah.
with that can see it in a different format.
It's really pretty, it's just hard to see.
Well, even looking
Yeah.
at
There's three shades of blue.
the item on where does it go, when you look at 2018 and 2019, you see the significant expense bump in those 2 years, and if you don't look closely, you don't see
Right.
that bump is all in road improvement.
Right.
That's all in authorizing the transportation sales tax and having a couple of other major improvements happening. So the 2018 expenditures are up because we took on a major project this year.
Yep.
And 2019 is the balance of those road improvement projects and the federal money that we're getting in to address the portion of CASA 12. So some of the other things, you would honestly see a very level piece if you took those changes out of there. So yeah, I think I can ask Valerie if we can reformat this in a different color and make it available on the website so people know that they can go look at it.
Okay.
The budget detail summary is
Hard to see.
better to see online when you can,
Yeah.
when you
Yeah,
can scale
go
your
like
page.
this. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is a combination of, I stole this report format from Cass County, and I think some other counties do the same thing, but this is a combination of Brady's levy summary, his levy impact by department, and then an expenditure summary so that it breaks costs down across all of our budgets. You can see the labor costs. You can
Yeah.
see the benefits costs.
It's It's
You can see
fantastic.
the operational costs, you can see the contract services, and then you can see the change from 2018 to 2019.
Yep.
And what I think that this format does is it allows you to take a look at the net changes over on the far right-hand side from one line item to the other, and direct people to the budget detail within the 60-page document of the general fund detail to go look at the pages specifically that they have questions about. So if you look down the line and you see that there's a, you know, that the commissioners' levy is actually going down, right?
It has, I think, every year since I got elected.
So you look through there and it gives you an opportunity to say on one page, what are we putting, when we say that most of our dollars go into staff, well, here are the actual dollars from the proposed budget.
So is 120 still assuming that we're going to change that position, veteran service officer?
Yes.
Okay.
Veterans, the 2018 budget for Health and Human Services and Veteran Service Officer show those changes happening in 2018, and they still show that reflected for 2019. We just haven't actually made those changes. If you look at the next page, the possible adjustments, which is page 121 out of the, so it should be.
I think it's over here. No, I've got it here. Right here.
Right there.
The handy thing about this new agenda format is that the viewer for it, when we're actually looking at it live through the Civic Web portal, you'll be able to see the agenda on one half of your screen and zoom to the piece that you want to look at on the other half of your screen. So when you see all of these blue lines, you'll be able to click on it, it'll take you right to that point. You'll be able to see the agenda in one
Awesome.
screen, the detail in the other screen.
So you don't have to
Click on
flip
the
back
next
and forth.
piece, you won't have to flip back
Yeah,
and forth.
yeah.
Electronically, the format is going to be much simpler than what we
Yeah.
currently have.
Yep.
From a paper standpoint, we can still print the full agenda the way that we had. Some of the issues this week are related to the fact that yesterday was a holiday, and the ones that were sent in the mail will show up today. And then the print formatting, we'll have to verify that before we make any copies of that.
So it's good that I still request print, because otherwise you wouldn't know.
We print about 6 full copies that get sent out.
Yeah.
The other very important piece about the new Civic Web portal is that people will have the ability to go on the website and sign up for updates.
Oh.
So when an agenda is posted, they will get an email that says a new agenda is posted. An agenda has been added to. Minutes are available for a meeting. They can subscribe to the updates based on each of the meetings that they want to subscribe to for the county. So our ability to communicate with the public is going to be greatly enhanced.
Yep.
Some of the formatting issues here are going to be dealt with on Thursday as we're training in our staff and our department heads on how to actually do the request before the board in the new system so that things show up right and lay out appropriately. But there are some things that related to the layout that I would like to address later in this meeting still. So back to the possible adjustments. The question before the board and the question before the budget committee for the last 2 months has been, can we meet the goal set by the board of a preliminary levy of 5.99% with the new items that have been requested, their staff-related items and the capital-related items. And if you see the 2 items that are highlighted in yellow, they've already been withdrawn.
Okay.
And they're already reflected in the new levy requirement. We needed to make $122,000 worth of adjustments to meet that levy goal.
Oh, 5.99.
And now we only have to make approximately $95,000 worth of adjustments to meet that goal. So on the very bottom, where it says adjust a 5.99% increase, a levy of $9.79 million, a levy increase of $550,000 $3,000, we still need to cut $95,000 from the proposed budget. The Budget Committee will be considering those this afternoon at 1 o'clock. We do have one possibility, as Rena has said, that the technician in MIS is something that we could add later in the year next year as one possible consideration. People have been strongly supportive of the 2-day-a-week community center assistant to help Diane with the programming and make sure that she's not there 6 or 7 days a week anymore. We have not wanted to adjust the capital requests, the building requests, but that's a possibility. We did get some updates from the Highway Department related to the equipment costs for 2019, and we have some program changes that are going to give us a little more, that are going to reduce some of our expenditures on the equipment that we're planning on buying next year. So the update is, at the Budget Committee this afternoon, I think we're going to review a list of things that could get us, meet that $95,000. But the request from commissioners who are not serving on the Budget Committee was, can you tell us where you're at, what we're doing?
Yeah,
And,
appreciate it.
because we're not sitting on this committee this year, we don't know what's going on, so.
Mhm.
Did that answer satisfactorily where we're at and what we're considering?
What happened to the senior center, 422? Because this sheet shows for 2019, they get nothing.
So remember that the public health community grants are shown in the public
Right.
health
So it
line,
moves
not
up.
in the general fund
Okay.
detail.
That's
So
what I
remember.
thought, but I just want to make sure.
Yep, remember, we authorized that differently. So from an accounting standpoint, the public health community grants are shown in the human services detail and not in the general fund detail. And a reminder that the YMCA is no longer in the special revenue showing on the levy summary. It's showing up as general fund detail under line 536. So many of the questions this morning about supporting kids and not paintbrushes, is the truth of the matter is we're still doing both. They were just done in a different way and reported out at different times through board meetings.
Right, and the Violence Prevention Center only requests funding when they need it, and they've, in the past, requested funding and then withdrawn it because they were able to get.
This year, they did request funding, and they were not funded.
Okay.
So based on the amount of money that was made available for those public health grants, their request was not funded based on the other needs that were brought forward to that committee. So I believe you have all that information. I think it's in the Human Services budget from last month when we reviewed the requests and made the recommendation to approve.
Right.
Just as a reminder, things are showing up in different places.
Right,
And
right,
some of
right.
that is by decisions that
Right.
the board has made, and some of that is based on the fact that this is evolving. By the time we get to the new year, this will be much easier to navigate, and I do welcome comments that people have on the way it looks, because we can adjust those things now.
Okay, anything else? You covered everything?
I believe so, unless anyone else has questions. I think
Yeah,
the next
well,
thing is the Budget Committee meeting this afternoon.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this briefly, but also, in order to deal with some of these issues and reductions, is that we could look at other departments still, like Health and Human Services, if we feel there's something that could be a little bit less, or highway, we could still do that.
Yes.
So, yeah, and I just would like to comment, I think that we're very fortunate in this community where our out-of-home placement costs are low. And I know that interventions make a difference, and we at the Y have started a program, as well as in childcare, to take in certain kids that are challenges. So we have this generation when we're providing some services to kids, and I think it was mentioned before, but we know we're making some progress in helping out some families by making that Y available for kids after school, before school. Otherwise, they'd be out getting in trouble. And so, I'm thinking that maybe to offset that, we can maybe take a look at that. But I only throw that out as a suggestion.
We did have a county on the general committee at the Association of Minnesota Counties. Their full budget is similar to ours. It's about 23 million a year. Their out-of-place home placements at our last meeting was already at 12 million for 2018.
Half of their,
That's for St. Louis County.
Nope.
no, this is the same budget as
This is a county
us.
that's the same
Size
size
budget
as
as
in
us.
expenses as us.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
Holy
Yeah.
cow, it's half of their,
And the state is coming to help them with 6 million. But they're still looking at what are they gonna do with their levy, how are they gonna budget for that? So we really need to invest in preventative and keep ahead of it.
Swimming upstream.
Okay, we'll move on to commissioner concerns. So you all have this little paper legislative priorities in front of you, or underneath all of your other piles.
Are you
So while we
sure?
talk, could we just get this voted on? You put in, as Barb asked, to rank them 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I will collect it and then get it down to Barb, because I have a meeting tomorrow night, where this will be presented then at our Arrowhead County Association meeting. Okay. Can you talk and do this at the same time, or should we just take a minute to do this? We'll just take a minute to do it.
5 is the highest.
Yeah, 5 is the highest, 1 is the lowest. Yes, yes.
and was that piece of paper in the packet, or?
Yeah, Jeff
You
had
got-
it
Oh, you
out.
got one,
Yes.
even. Thank you, thank you very much, yes, very
It
good.
was in what I handed out this morning.
Okay, it's in here then.
You have it,
Yeah.
but you can use mine.
Okay, because you're not voting? Okay.
Voted on that many times.
Yeah, I know.
3, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, we've done it in the club.
Yeah. Well, we received the letter from Ann as to why this was changed. So you can put your.
That's the Association of Counties.
Yes.
Arrowhead.
Arrowhead, yeah. Bobby's working on his and Jan. Okay, anybody have any meetings to note, meeting updates? Anything coming up that you, yes, Brady?
Chair, I'd like to mention just that we've had 2 requests for recounts for the election. The city requested a request on the city council race, and so that one will be recounted on Thursday. We'll start that at 9 o'clock. And then a commissioner's race. Bruce Martinson asked for a recount on that race also. And we would start that shortly after, let's say 11 o'clock as an estimated time, both in the commissioner's room. Yeah.
Thank you.
At least we're not Florida.
In all ways.
In all ways, yeah. Only place to visit. Okay, anything else?
For commissioner reports?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Because we often get presented with challenges from the public part of the meeting, that I just wanted to respond just a little bit to the idea that that what we're funding are frivolous things. And I think what we've already talked about, that the Y is doing a lot toward preventative programs that otherwise would be costing us a lot more. And I just wanted to, the rec park that we're considering is not just for tourists. And the whole idea that people come here to recreate and that the people that live here don't is not true. In fact, the people who live here come to live here largely because of our recreational opportunities. We are a land rich with recreational opportunities. And if we want to attract young families and keep young families and so forth, we need to be seriously considering expanding those, or at least keeping up with what the rest of the world is doing in that area. So that it's not frivolous, I guess, is what I wanted to say, that creating recreational opportunities is not a frivolous activity.
We're just doing a
No,
master plan.
but we're working in
Yeah.
that. I mean, we're spending a lot of time and energy working on those things because we're a community that cares about those things.
And the committee working on it is not tourists. The
No.
committee working on all these decisions is our
This community
Parks
is
and
rich
Trails.
in people who enjoy outdoor activities, and makes us special.
I could comment, to follow up on that,
Yeah.
having served on Sawtooth Bluffs Committee, you know, that whole thing initially was started by user groups coming to our committee, and these people were from Cook County.
From the community.
Yeah, and saying, you know, this is what we'd like to see here for us. Yeah, it's going to draw tourists, but I think the real initiative that we took in this in the beginning was to hear about the user groups currently here, and we learned some things. You know, I didn't know disc golf was a big thing. And and definitely most of the people that will use a dog park, you know, are going to be residents. Thank you for
Thank you.
reminding me of that.
Thank you.
So, when I was elected many moons ago, when we had public comment, the board responded to public comment at public comment. And I almost got up and walked out this morning because there's so much that was said that is just plain not true. And I don't think it's fair to this person who comes to all of our meetings to talk to us to not get a response from us, to not have us answer their questions. So I know that our county attorney had recommended we don't respond because not everybody can come to public comment, so some people don't get responses and it's not fair, but I would like us to all consider responding to this. And I know that it isn't always helpful to respond to the public, but how many times do you have to say we don't own a golf course? I mean, I would really like to address the incorrect information, and even if that's not responding directly to people speaking so they're not uncomfortable and don't want to come in, but at least while they're still in the room, can we address these things instead of the end of the meeting when they're not here and they don't know what we're talking about? I mean, it's really unfair to them and unfair to us. And I think she deserves an answer to a lot of her questions. And, you know, we've discussed in the past that maybe public comment isn't the best way, but apparently that's the way for her to communicate to us. So how can we answer her questions?
Well, we have committed, you know, the committee of the whole, which we bring up, you know, comments, and and she's come to that and had the same comments, and we answered them, and
We can answer them there. Why can't we answer them here? Why can't we help her out, help her understand? Or anyone who comes in. I know legally we could get ourselves in hot water, but every time Heidi opens her mouth, we might get sued, so.
But it is frustrating.
It is frustrating. I wanted to answer her this morning. I wanted to let her know.
I think if I could just comment, you know, sometimes they're not questions, they're just comments. And they're sort of getting a lecture on what we should be doing, which is fine, but I don't know, I think that our format now is let's listen respectfully, and sometimes some good things can come from it. I mean, but I think if we get into dialogue, then I think we can get into arguments, and I don't know if that's good.
So we don't get into dialogue, but when the public comment is closed, just like we do at the planning commission, once it's closed to the public, it's open to the board. So instead of us having it under meetings to note and commissioner reports, why don't we have the discussion after the public comment is closed, where we're not responding to them, but we're answering questions. We're not getting in a dialogue, and it's not a you, and this, but it's a response, because our public commenters, not just Arvis, but other people who come in, have somewhere else they need to be. They can't wait until we get to commissioner concerns, and we often address public comment during commissioner concerns. So how do we set the agenda so that it's not a back and forth?
Good point, just move commissioner concerns to the beginning.
So we have 5 minutes for them to give their opinion or question. Then do we take 5 minutes to respond?
Not to each one, just public comments
Right.
open, and then when it's closed,
Right.
it's an opportunity for us to have public comment.
Or
So don't
respond.
necessarily
To respond.
move commissioner reports and stuff, but just after that, is there any And
That
then the
makes sense to
hospital
me.
does kind of like good of the order at the beginning of the meeting. Is there anything from commissioner, from the hospital? They do that at the top of the meeting from their district, and sometimes they respond to comments.
Well, let's mull this around,
Like it.
see what we think.
I don't want to get into a back and forth. I don't want to get into an argument.
But we wouldn't have to, like you say. We
Yeah.
wouldn't have to. Or you wouldn't have to.
Okay,
What, yeah, if we could have our county attorney look at that.
okay, we'll do that. All righty. Anything else before we move on to the next? Nothing? Okay, so we have a lot of anniversaries. So,
Thought we-
Commissioner Dukert, you take it away.
Didn't we, when we made the agenda, add something under? I have ARDC written down. Did we already address that?
We just did that. That's the voting you just did.
All right, that's what it is. Cool. I was paying attention. I was writing 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. For the how many time, Myron, did we write that? We have a lot of anniversaries. Thank you to all of the staff. So, Jesse Backstrom, Highway Department, 5 years. Norris Clegstead, 5 years at the Highway Department. Jimmy Wallner, 4 years custodian, maintenance. Joseph Ruth, 10 years in our land services. Jesse Johnson, 4 years at our law enforcement center. Diane Booth.
Pretty.
Sorry, Diane, 3 decades. Clark Bloomquist, 8 years at the Highway Department. Cooper Turnus, 3 years in Public Health and Human Services. Heather Wicklander, 3 years at our law enforcement center. Tyler Maruska, 5 years at our recycle center. Julie Coleman, 14 years at our law enforcement center. Joe Pernat, 4 years at our highway department. And Rick Sturm, 23 years at the recycle center. So thank you all for your hard work and dedication. And thanks for still coming in when it's 40 below outside.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
So a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
We are adjourned.
Oh, there are the cards. I was going to say, are there cards?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll get going here.
And there's 2 Jessies in there when you're filling those out.
Oh, yeah.
Bring them over. Let's verify.
Your little buddy.
Who